everybody, Gina DeLuca here. All right, as you can see, my edges are painted, so yes, it is a straight pour today. I have custom blended colors here. This background color, the base coat / background, is a mixture of Liquitex Basics Titanium White, Phthalo Blue, and Phthalo Green. This is one of my favorite combinations of paints. You can add more blue, you can add more green, but it is always going to be a beautiful watery color. This is almost like Tiffany box blue. Now, when I mix this, there's actually only a tiny bit of the blue in there. There's more green than blue, even though this appears more blue than green. That blue, just a touch of it will really change the color. So you only need a tiny bit of the blue and more green. This color is a custom blend. This looks like that mysterious color that has been discontinued that everybody loved. Might as well show you the consistency while I'm here. Actually, I'll show you that on a lighter color. It'll be easier to see. But this is a blend of the Decoart Americana Decor Metallics in Emerald and Deep Sapphire. And this color is a blend of, there's a little bit of this paint, so it is the blend of the blue and the green, and the matte metallics paint in soft silver. The consistency that we're working with is a 2 on my consistency scale. You can see it makes a mound, but it does disappear quickly. You don't want to go too thin with the metallics because the mica will separate from the binder and just kind of float around on your painting. So these paints were mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. That mixture is then thinned with my 90% water, 10% Floetrol concoction until I get to that consistency that I want. Sometimes I don't need any of that. If the paint is thin enough, by the time I add the 2 parts Floetrol, it's perfect. And sometimes I need to add some water. That's how that goes. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards. Each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need, the exact paint colors, consistency, the recipe, what have you. This box has a tip for that particular technique. There is a color palette here at the bottom for that technique. And then these 2 boxes are designed to go together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can just build off of those 2 colors. And there are 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of them. And you can mix and match the bonus color palettes with your technique cards, and you have many thousands of combinations, more than you could ever paint in a lifetime. And these can also be used for any kind of art that you might be doing. The color palettes are very handy for beadwork or crochet, or someone even used them to decorate their house. So there you go. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. The first thing I'm going to do here is put some paint in my cup. I just want to make sure I have enough for my cup, the base coat, and to have a little bit left over to put on top. So now I will put on the base coat. So the reason I cover the sides is because straight pours are mixed pretty thin. And when it goes over the sides, sometimes if it is thin, you will not get great coverage on the sides, and then the sides will need to be touched up. It is a lot easier to just paint the sides first than to come back and try to touch it up, especially if you have a custom blend color like this is. It would be tremendously difficult for me to perfectly match this color again, because it may just have a little more blue than the last time, or a little more green than the last time. And as you're mixing, as you probably know, the colors appear a bit lighter than they do when they dry. So it's kind of hard to get that perfect mix. Not impossible, just more trouble than it's worth when you can just paint the sides ahead of time. And then I'm laying down this base coat so that my poured paints have a nice, wet, slick surface to float around on, to slide around on, and so the paints don't roll over top of each other. Because what happens if you pour onto a dry canvas, I mean, the paint has to stick to it, right? So you're having part of your poured paint stick to the canvas, and then the paints are rolling over top of themselves. And often what happens is, if you had some nice cells on your edges, they have disappeared because your other paints have rolled over top of it. So this will help with that, and it also helps to give you a little more control over your composition. And one of the things that I love most about straight pours is that I do have a bit of control over my composition. That is why I will choose a straight pour over something random like a flip cup, because I'm a control freak. I've been told. And I don't argue with it. All right, my base coat is down, and I'm gonna pop the bubbles that are in it. You may or may not know, but when you refill your torch, you do want to let it sit for like 3 to 5 minutes before you use it. I don't know why, that's just what they tell you to do. As my fiance says, you're such a rule follower. I went to Catholic school, so if you didn't follow the rules, the nuns had a paddle called, it had a name. It was Joe Corey. Don't know why it was named Joe Corey. There was an actor on the Twilight Zone named Joe Corey. Maybe it was named after that. Who knows? But yeah, so to avoid the paddle, you follow the rules. And so for the most part, I try to follow the rules. Can't say I always do though, you know, that would just be a lie. All right, so enough about me. Let's put some paint in a cup. Just checking the consistency because it can thicken up on you as it sits. Looking good. I'm going to start with the darker blue first, pouring from very high, using those old bartender skills. Pouring high so that the velocity of the paints force it to sink. These want to pop to the top. These want to make cells. So you kind of have to bully it a bit to make it sink. Okay, and now for that silvery blend. Again, from up high. What this also does is it causes these cell makers to blend. And so you can get those cool 3D looking cells. And I have been in touch with some folks who are, now I'm just going to put some of this on top here, what I have left. I've been in touch with some folks who have PhDs in fluid mechanics and such, trying to get to the bottom of what is creating these cells. Now, it has been a long-standing theory that, you know, the cells that are created without silicone are due to the Rayleigh-Taylor instability. If you are using, say you're using Liquitex Basics Black and White, and you get cells because you put the white over the black. It doesn't work if you put the black over the white. Put the white over the black, the white will sink, will create cells. That is the Rayleigh-Taylor instability. What is happening here is not the Rayleigh-Taylor instability. They believe, I believe, because what is happening, it is a reaction between matte paints and less matte paints. It doesn't necessarily have to be a glossy paint. It could be a satin paint, but it just needs to have enough gloss so that the matte paints push it away. So whatever that is, we're trying to get to the bottom of it. What would be causing that? But yeah, so still doing research. Got some brilliant minds thinking on it. We'll see if we come to any conclusions. As you can see, the cells are popping up already. I'm going to pour this in a slow circle. I find that this does really create some awesome boulders, as well as a cool composition. It is hard to talk when I'm pouring. Not gonna lie. Okay. Gotta try to get something happening in the center here. I'm kind of going back and forth between a ring and straight. The closer I get to the end of the cup, the slower I go, and the closer I get to the canvas. That will help you have some control over your centers. Oh. How's that for depth perception? I just stuck my finger right in there. Okay, so that's gonna happen. I am legally blind in one eye and I have no depth perception. So honestly, it's a miracle that like these things don't happen more often. Let's pop these bubbles. This does create a lot of bubbles. It is better to pop them now than to pop them after you stretch. If you pop them now and you get cells, you can stretch those cells out. That is one of the reasons that I use a base coat that is the same color as something in my pour. Actually, I do that for two reasons. One, if I decide that I want to keep some negative space, because like, what if there were just magnificent cells right here and I don't want to lose them? I don't want to tilt it off. Then I could have this as negative space and it still works because it's in the pour. But also, if there are bubbles in the base coat that I missed when I torched it, and I torch it after the pour, if those cells pop up through my painting, through my pour, at least it's part of the painting. If I were to use a straight white here, and then I had white cells popping up, but there's no white in the pour, it'd be like, where did that white come from? Okay, so as I let this sit, more of these Boulder cells will pop up. And then as I stretch the painting, they will get bigger and have an even more 3D-like effect. So patience is really, really important in fluid art in general, but specifically, if you are trying to get cells without using silicone, patience is really important. Let these cells develop. I mean, you saw them try to pop up through in the cup, you know, through the paint that I put on top. It wants to come up, and if you give it time, it will. Now, also with a straight pour, if I were to tilt this right away, I would get cells anyway. Right? The areas here where I have this negative space, there will be little pop-up cells. If I stretch this, the cells would be popping up. But they're going to be the pop-up cells, what some people call them pearl cells. The ones that show up after your pour is all stretched out and they just, you know, kind of pop up, and they're pretty uniform in size. But if you wait and allow the Boulder cells to develop and then stretch those out, that's when you get that awesome 3D effect. And as this sits, you'll see more bubbles coming to the top, and you just keep hitting it with the torch, being careful not to scorch your paint. Not what we're trying to do here. Okay, I'm gonna hit this corner first. I've been asked, how do I decide which corner to do first? After a while, you kind of start to just be able to tell which one is going to make a corner easiest. And I'm tilting slowly. I do not want the paint to run over itself. And I'm going to bring the weight of the paint back to center before I change directions. And I'm actually going to hit that opposing corner, caddy corner, adjacent corner. What is it? Geometry was not my strong suit. I would have been a scientist if it weren't for the math. I love science. I hate math. And there is a whole lot of math and science. Okay. I'm going to slow this down. My center is starting to warp a little bit, and we don't want that. Okay. And again, bringing the paint back to center. And you can see, if you're very careful and slow, you can almost get corners going by controlling the weight of your paint. Okay, now I'm going to bring the weight of the paint back to center. I want to stretch that blue area out because I really like that. It's beautiful. Now I'm just trying to control this composition a bit. That silver almost has a pink hue somehow, even though there's green and and blue in it. It's so funny how these colors look together sometimes. Sometimes that's how the magic happens. I am just going to give this a bit of a stretch on this side that is closest to me. I'm not trying to tilt anything off of the opposite side. I just want to stretch it because that is going to cause more cells to pop up in that base color area. Okay. Just a bit more, just a bit more. I kind of want, I don't want my center in the center. All right. I like how that composition is looking. And I'm just going to give a bit of a torch, but only in this area with the negative space. And that is going to help some of the pop-up cells as well. So all of these little dots that just popped up were bubbles that were in the paint that was underneath of that. And they should turn into cells and grow. That is why I don't do that elsewhere, because I don't want this to change. This If it changes, if we get more cells, I'm fine with that. But I don't want any of that to change. I don't want any of this base coat color popping through there. So, all right. I'm going to let this sit and see what it does. And we'll bring you in for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, here it is. Quite lovely, I think. Got some awesome 3D action going on. Did get a couple of cells pop through the base coat. I torched that thing like 3 times at least. It happens. That's at least why you at least make it something that's the same color. But here are some of the pop-up cells that came up in that area. I do like when some of the pop-up cells happen along with the boulders, because it kind of looks like little pieces of it breaking off, little extra bubbles. But I do love these colors together. 'Tis very cool. Once again, it just has that appearance that it's like glowing from behind. But I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe and all that good stuff. Help me stay afloat in the evil algorithms. Do check out the description box below for links to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. Appreciate it, but certainly not expected. There are links to my affiliates, and that would be Blick and Arteza and Amazon. And if you enter through those links, anything that you purchase off of those websites, I will receive a small commission at no additional cost to you. And also in the description box, you will find the link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net. And last but certainly not least, our Facebook group. Go make some art. Join us there. Post your masterpieces. Ask your questions. Get some inspiration. All right, y'all. That is going to be it for me for today. I hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.